Hello, everyone. Today, I'm going to talk about a truly disgusting article that was posted on the News website on the 26th of October. That being, we being pressured into sex by some trans women, written by Lowbridge. Now, hateful transphobic bigotry is very much the norm throughout most of the British news media, but for various reasons, this article stands out as especially repulsive. This article attempts to make the case that cis lesbians are being sexually assaulted by predatory trans women on a level that goes beyond the actions of individuals. Cis lesbians as a group are in danger from trans women, is the point this article is trying to make. Now, of course, a member of any group of people can pressure or coerce someone into sex, but we cannot use that fact to tar the whole group with the same brush. Using the actions of an individual to discriminate against an entire group is well, it's discrimination, isn't it? Thebeke could just as well print, we being pressured into sex by some cis lesbians, and use isolated incidents of people being sexually assaulted by cis lesbians to make the case that the lesbian community is inherently dangerous. Now, that would be ridiculous, homophobic discrimination, and exactly as valid as this article. Thebeke would not write the articles, we being pressured into sex by some black men, or we being pressured into sex by some Jews. But it can get away with writing the exact same thing about trans women because of the media environment into which it's being released, which is an openly transphobic one. So I disagree with this article in conception. I think it is a textbook case of bigoted discrimination, but it gets much worse, trust me. Now, for an article with this title, you might expect it would mainly be concerned with people being pressured into sex by trans women, but the article contains only 2 reported instances of trans women pressuring someone into sex. It's actually much more concerned with hypothetical scenarios, or with differences of opinion within the community that have nothing whatsoever to do with trans women pressuring people into sex. For instance, it tells the story of a cis lesbian whose girlfriend wanted them to have a threesome with a trans woman, but she didn't want to, and they had an argument about that. Now, no trans woman is pressuring anyone here. They are not even involved in the story directly. This is something going on between 2 cis women. This story has no business being alongside someone saying, "I was actually pressured into sex," as if those two things were equivalent. Now, in an attempt to prove that trans women pressuring people into sex is an actual phenomenon and not just a number of isolated incidents, the same as we would expect of any group, the article cites a questionnaire distributed by the fringe transphobic hate group Get the Allowed, which reported that of the 80 women who did respond, 56 reported being pressured or coerced to accept a trans woman as a sexual partner. Now, there were lots of problems with this questionnaire. Firstly, it specifically refuses to gender trans women correctly using he and him throughout. Given that, and the fact that Get the Allowed distributed this study via social media, gives rise to obvious BS issues, specifically in terms of who would respond to this clearly biased hateful propaganda in the first place. But a bigger issue is what the questionnaire considers to be pressure or coercion. In the section of the findings, which reports the 56 figure, it states most respondents reported being subjected to such rhetoric directly or indirectly with the general feeling that it's only everywhere and relentless. Now, this is not trans women pressuring people into sex. This is some transphobes seeing trans acceptance on the internet and not liking that. They don't think that trans women are women, so when they see people online treating trans women as women, they take that as a personal attack, but it isn't. And we see a similar attitude in the section titled Deception. Several respondents discussed their experiences of deception while being approached by trans women they assumed to be women. They reported feeling betrayed and violated. So just trans women passing is being classed as deception here. They retaking it personally. They reacting like, by itself, a trans woman passing is an attack upon them. What is being included as pressure or coercion here is simply trans women existing. And we see a very clear indication of this when the questionnaire shares that awful quote by Janice Raymond comparing trans people's existence at all to the act of rape. And it is incredibly unfair to actual survivors of sexual assault to have their experiences categorized alongside things like "I didn't realize someone was trans," or "not enough people are being transphobic on the internet," or simply "just trans people exist." This is just hate speech very shoddily dressed up as a study. And it is utterly embarrassing that they've shared this as if it was legitimate. But to be clear here, even though this rubbish is clearly discriminatory and put out by an obviously biased group and pads what we can mockingly call its findings with utter irrelevancies, I am absolutely not casting doubt on any of the respondents who reported actual sexual harassment or coercion. All I will say is that, firstly, we cannot use their individual experiences to discriminate against an entire group of people. And secondly, nobody at Theb responsible for sharing the findings of this study cares at all about women being sexually assaulted. Carolyn Lowbridge does not care about women being sexually assaulted except for how she can use that to attack trans people. And this is not something I say lightly. There is absolute proof here. You see, this article featured prominently as a source Lily Cade, an adult film performer who, quote, "Now, I dislike the very gatekeepy gold star lesbian phrase there, but leaving that aside, Cade gets quoted several times in the article, and this also a big picture of her posing for the cameras there. So, trusted because the source Lily Cade here, giving her thoughts about trans women pressuring people into sex. Now, there's an issue with this, and that is Lily Cade is someone who is accused of, and has admitted to, a series of sexual assaults. Multiple people in the industry Lily Cade worked in reported that she sexually assaulted them, and this is something that was known about long before this article came out. So, what is Lily Cade doing here? Being given a platform by Theb to share her thoughts in an article about women being pressured into sex. If Theb cared about women being pressured into sex, Why not mention that their source has a history of sexually assaulting women? So we can say, maybe they didn't know. Maybe Caroline Lowbridge, when writing this article, didn't bother to Google the names of the people she was talking to, or maybe just nobody informed her of the allegations against Lily Cade. Except that's not true, and we can prove it. And to do so, we first need to correct an outright lie in the article. So, in the section of the article titled "Who Else Was Approached?", Caroline Lowbridge writes, "Now, this is not true." So, Chelsea Poe is a high-profile trans woman who has spoken extensively about sex and relationships, being interviewed in the Huffington Post, Glamour, Slate, and so on. Chelsea Poe claims that she was interviewed by Caroline Lowbridge for Vcodec, but that her contribution was cut. She also claims that she informed Vcodec about the sexual assaults carried out by Lily Cade, but that, to quote a Pink News article about this incident, there was not much of a reaction from the journalist. Now, we know that this interview took place. Chelsea Poe tweeted about talking to Vcodec and Caroline Lowbridge in September of last year, and Vcodec itself confirmed to Pink News that Lowbridge interviewed Poe, but that, quote, "Now, firstly, here, Vcodec has been caught in an outright falsehood, obviously." The article states, "Today, it still says this, that no high-profile trans women wanted to talk to Caroline Lowbridge, while neglecting to mention that they did. They were interviewed, and then she cut them. And now she's pretending that nobody wanted to talk to her, that she couldn't find a willing participant to give an alternate viewpoint. And this is just lying. Just open lying. Secondly, this article is purportedly about women feeling pressured into sex, and you were told one of your main sources is someone who repeatedly sexually assaulted women. How could that not be relevant? It couldn't be more relevant. It seems obvious to say, but if Caroline Lowbridge or anyone at the responsible for this article cared at all about women being sexually assaulted, they never would have given a platform to someone who they knew they were told sexually assaulted women. The only problem for them here is that Lily Cade isn't trans. Her sexual assaults can't to be weaponized to attack trans people, so her sexual assaults don't count. They're not relevant. Lily Cade's actions speak only to her behavior for some reason, and not any group she belongs to. Lily Cade is afforded the dignity of being considered responsible for her own actions, not like those trans women who must be judged as a group for the actions of individuals. And of course, there is the additional indignity done to the anonymous survivors of sexual assault quoted in the article who were made to share a platform alongside someone who sexually assaulted women. Now, it might be hard to believe this, but this story gets even worse. You see, Lily Cade used the spotlight given to her by Vcodec. She used the attention this article generated for her to publish a deranged genocidal manifesto, seriously, calling for the murder of all trans women, which included naming specific trans women she wanted to personally, quote, lynch. And perhaps most pertinent for the topic at hand today, Lily Cade didn't just make death threats, but also rape threats against the families of trans people. Now, after several days of trying to ignore that this happened, they have to pressure and removed Lily Cade's contribution from the article. And the editorial note they included with the article reads as follows: "We have updated this article published last week to remove a contribution from one individual in light of comments she has published on blog posts in recent days, which we have been able to verify. We acknowledge that an admission of inappropriate behavior by the same contributor should have been included in the original article. So firstly, note the lack of apology for platforming a rapist who writes serial killer manifestos. But also, what's with the euphemisms here in light of comments she published? I guess that's what we're calling explicit death threats now. Comments and inappropriate behavior. Now, the article itself uses terms like rape and sexual assault when attributing those things to trans women, so why did they only talk about what Lily Cade did euphemistically? And an admission of inappropriate behavior should have been included. Apparently it would have been fine to platform Lily Cade if only they'd included an admission of their, quote, inappropriate behavior. And how would that work? What would they have said? Even Lily Cade, admitted rapist, has some concerns about women being pressured into sex. What sense would that make? No, including Cade at all was wrong, Vcodec. You do not get to weasel out of this. You must and will take this article down and give a full apology for it. Not just for platforming Lily Cade, but for the outright lies, the terrible research, and the disgusting, bigoted premise. Now, you might notice that I am a little annoyed about this, and I admit it, I am. This is awful. Because supposed to be better than this. It isn't, clearly, but it's supposed to be. This article will be deleted and apologized for eventually, depending on how stubborn Web wants to be about it, which at the moment is very stubborn. But before it is deleted, I feel compelled to speak up about it. I don't like that this is happening in the BA. I don't like that this is happening in me country. And I want to be able to say in the future that I said something about it at the time. So what I'm gonna do, in addition to making this video, is submit a complaint to Web. And I would encourage you to also make a complaint, only if you feel compelled to do so, of course. And we can do it together right now, actually. So Web is a worldwide service and they accept complaints from anywhere. So don't worry if you read outside the book. I'll include a link in the video description to the complaints page, which looks like this. And then I'm gonna click the Make a Complaint button there, which takes us to this page. From the drop-down menu under What is your complaint about? I'm going to select Book website or apps, and then Book News website. When it asks for the URL, I'm gonna paste the URL of the awful news article, which I'll include below. Then, are you contacting us about a previous complaint? No, and continue. So select the best category to describe your complaint. And honestly, it could be anything here. Bias, factual error, offense, poor quality. But I'm gonna select factual error or inaccuracy here. You see, my gut is telling me to focus on the one particularly about no prominent trans woman wanting to talk to the author of the article. It is an obvious falsehood. It is very easy to express, and it's impossible to refute. Theb cannot respond honestly here in any way, except to further amend the article to remove this lie. Anything else they say in response will make them look even more biased. I will include the text of my complaint in the video description, but would encourage you to, only if you feel like it, of course, complain about any or all of the various problems with the article. And maybe you could share your complaints in the comments to perhaps inspire people in forming their own complaints. I am also going to select that I don't want a response to me complaints because I want to see what they say in their defense here. Now, before I go today, I just want to address on response that I know this video will get. You see, the article qualifies its criticism of trans women by saying some trans women, a minority of trans women, and so on. So they can't be being biased because they were saying it's a problem specific to some trans women, not all trans women. This is a cowardly tactic intended to provide cover for them while it shares the messages of anti-trans hate groups. The is being biased regardless of these cowardly qualifiers. As we've seen today, some cis lesbians, like Lily Cade, pressure people into sex. But they are not writing that article, are they? Of course, if Lily Cade was trans, she would be featured prominently here as one of the trans women pressuring people into sex. But because she isn't trans, Lily Cade gets quietly cut from the story. So I don't buy these qualifiers. I don't think they re-meet honestly. If they were meet honestly, then this article wouldn't exist. Anyway, that's all from me today, folks. I'll see you next time.